Chosen one, if you've been feeling like you're living in the wrong life, right work, wrong fit, right calling, wrong peace, right purpose, wrong you, there's a reason. God just told me something He's been holding back from you, and He said, I can't keep this from them anymore. Here it is. You are living a purpose right now, but it's not yours. Someone else's blueprint, someone else's script, someone else's cage, and you've been so faithful to it, you thought it was your destiny. But your real purpose, the one God has been hiding to protect you, just got too big to stay hidden. It's breaking through. That restlessness you feel, that's not you breaking down. That's the cage breaking open. And what I'm about to show you is how to step out of what was never yours and into what always was. You didn't find this video by accident. This isn't the algorithm. This isn't timing. This is a divine interception. Heaven has been waiting for you to be ready for what I'm about to say. And the fact that you're here right now in this exact moment means something shifted. A gate just opened. You just passed something. And what's on the other side of that gate is the truth about why your entire life has felt like you're wearing someone else's clothes. Because here's what God can't hold back anymore. You're not lost. You're not behind. You're not failing at finding your purpose. You've been living a purpose, working hard, staying faithful, pouring everything into it. But that purpose, it's killing you. Not because you're doing it wrong, because it was never built for your body. It's a counterfeit, and you've been so committed to making it work, you didn't realize you've been trying to breathe in a cage. Subscribe right now to join thousands of awakened chosen ones who refuse to live the wrong life one more day. Hit that like button if something in your spirit already knows what I'm about to confirm. And comment the word ready if you're prepared to see the cage for what it is. Do it now. This is your signal to heaven that you're receiving this word. Now let me show you what I mean. You know that feeling when you achieve something and instead of celebration, you feel empty? When you succeed and instead of satisfaction, you feel exhausted? When people praise you and instead of pride, you feel like a fraud? That's not humility. That's not imposter syndrome. That's your real self recognizing a counterfeit. See, a counterfeit purpose has a very specific signature. It looks right. It sounds right. It gets results. But something's off. And here's how you know. It requires you to perform, to act, to convince yourself every morning that this is who you are. Real purpose doesn't need convincing. Counterfeit purpose needs constant convincing. Let me be specific. A counterfeit purpose will have these exact symptoms. First, success feels like survival, not celebration. You hit the goal, and immediately you're thinking about the next one. No rest, no peace, just more. Second, validation from others feels good for about 5 minutes, then it's gone. You need another hit, another compliment, another achievement. Third, when you're alone and it's quiet, a voice whispers, "This isn't me. This was never me." That third one, that voice. Pay attention to that voice, because that's not doubt speaking, that's not fear, that's your real purpose, trying to break through the static. Right now, I want you to notice something. Not with your hands, just with your awareness. Notice the weight on your shoulders. That pressure you've been carrying. You thought that was stress. You thought that was responsibility. But what if that's the weight of a purpose that doesn't belong to you? What if your body has been trying to tell you, "This load isn't mine to carry"? Your body knows. It's been screaming at you, and you've been ignoring it, calling it anxiety, calling it burnout, medicating it, managing it. But it's not a disorder, it's a signal. So how did this happen? How did you end up living someone else's purpose in your own body? Let me show you the mechanism. This counterfeit was implanted early. Before you knew who you were, someone else decided who you should be. And here's who did the implanting. The parent who said, "Be realistic." The teacher who said, "Focus on what you're good at, not what you love." The pastor who said, "Serve where there's need, not where there's fire." The culture that said, "This is what success looks like." The enemy who whispered, "This is safer." And because you were young, because you trusted them, because you didn't have language for what you actually wanted, you took their blueprint and you ran with it. You worked hard, you got results. You made them proud, and every time someone approved, you thought, "See, this is my purpose." But approval from the wrong people will lead you down the right road to the wrong destination. Let me give you the dialogue, the actual voice of the counterfeit. It sounds like this: "You should be grateful. Others have it worse." This is what responsible people do. Don't be selfish. Don't rock the boat. This is good enough. Be practical. That's the counterfeit speaking. And it sounds wise. It sounds spiritual. It sounds like maturity. But it's a cage with good acoustics. And here's what you've been thinking. Don't lie to yourself. You've thought this: maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm just ungrateful. Maybe everyone feels this way, and I'm the only one who can't handle it. Maybe I'm broken. Those thoughts, that's not conviction. That's confusion, because you're trying to make peace with a purpose that was never designed for you. Now, here's where most people stop. They say, "Okay, I've been living the wrong purpose, so I just need to find the right one. I need to search harder, try different things, explore more, keep looking until I find the one that fits." And that sounds logical, that sounds proactive, that sounds like the solution. But what if you're not missing your purpose? What if the problem isn't that you haven't found it yet? What if you're already living a purpose right now, just the wrong one? Because if you're living the wrong purpose, the solution isn't to search for the right one. The solution is to purge the wrong one, to decommission it, to break free from it, and then the real one can emerge. This is the paradigm shift most people miss. They think they're on a treasure hunt, but they're actually in a prison break. And you cannot find freedom while you're still decorating your cell. Stay with me, because I need to show you why this matters biblically. Everyone loves to quote Jeremiah 29:11, right? "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Beautiful verse, comforting verse. But do you know WHO that was written to? Exiles, Israelites in Babylon, captivity, the wrong country, the wrong city, the wrong life. God wasn't saying, "Stay comfortable where you are, I have plans." He was saying, "I'm going to extract you. I'm going to bring you home. This isn't where you belong, and I'm not leaving you here." That verse isn't about patience in the wrong place. It's about a rescue plan from the wrong place. And if you've been using that verse to justify staying in a purpose that's crushing you, you've misread it. God's plan for you includes extraction. It includes freedom. It includes coming home to who you actually are. And the fact that you're hearing this message right now, that's the extraction team arriving. Because here's what I haven't told you yet. There's something else. Something God has been deliberately hiding from you. Not as punishment, not because you weren't ready, but because if you knew it too soon, you would have tried to carry it before you were strong enough, and it would have destroyed you. That something is this: God deliberately hid your real purpose from you. And when I say hid, I don't mean he forgot to tell you. I don't mean he was waiting for you to pray harder or fast longer or prove yourself worthy. I mean he actively suppressed it, like a doctor suppressing an immune response during surgery, because if your real purpose had been unleashed too early, it would have killed you. Let me explain the mechanism. When that counterfeit purpose was planted in you, back when you were 5, 10, 15 years old, your real purpose was already inside you. God had already encoded it into your DNA. But here's what would have happened if both purposes tried to exist at the same time. War. Internal war. You would have been torn in half. One purpose pulling you toward approval, safety, the familiar. Another purpose pulling you toward risk, fire, the unknown. And you weren't strong enough yet to choose the right one. So, God did something surgical. He put your real purpose into quarantine, not as punishment, as protection, because your real purpose is dangerous. It threatens systems, it disrupts comfort, it requires a version of you that didn't exist yet. And if the enemy had seen it, if your family had seen it, if you had seen it too soon, it would have been aborted before it could be born. Think about this. You know, when a doctor quarantines a patient, it's not because they're diseased, it's because they're contagious. They carry something so powerful that if it spreads too soon, it'll cause chaos. God quarantined your real purpose for the same reason. It's contagious, it's powerful, it's disruptive. And you weren't ready to carry something that contagious. Not yet. So he let you live the counterfeit. He let you pour years into something that wasn't yours. And every time you cried because it didn't fit, every time you burned out trying to make it work, every time you felt like a fraud, you thought God wasn't listening. But he was. He was counting the skills you were learning, counting the character you were building, counting the resilience you were developing, because all of it was preparation for what's been in quarantine. Now, let me show you something that's going to blow your mind. This isn't a new strategy. This is God's pattern. He's done this with everyone he's ever used powerfully. Let me take you somewhere. Close your eyes if you can, or just see this in your mind. I want you to picture a prison cell in Egypt. Stone walls, darkness, one small window at the top. And in that cell, there's a young man. His name is Joseph, 17 years old when his brothers sold him into slavery. 30 years old, sitting in this prison, 13 years of his life, gone, forgotten, alone. What's he doing in that cell? What's his purpose during those 13 years? Nothing that looks significant. He's interpreting dreams for prisoners. He's managing a jail. Small things, invisible things. But here's what you don't see. God is building something, teaching him administration, teaching him patience, teaching him how to steward other people's visions before he gets his own. And when he finally gets out at age 30, he doesn't become a preacher. He becomes second in command of an entire nation. He saves millions of lives. But if God had revealed that purpose at 17, Joseph would have tried to force it, would have announced it, would have been killed before he was ready. Moses, 40 years in the wilderness, not 40 days, 40 years, taking care of sheep on the backside of a desert. What's the purpose in that? What's the calling? Nothing that looks impressive, but God is letting him unlearn. Unlearn the pride of Egyptian royalty. Unlearn the need for human approval. Learn to hear God's voice in the silence. And when he's 80 years old, God shows up at a burning bush and says, "Now you're ready. Now I can trust you with a nation. Now I can show you who you actually are." David, teenage boy in a field with sheep, overlooked by his own father, not even invited to the prophet's meeting when Samuel comes to anoint a king. Why? Because God was training him in private before he could use him in public. Every lion David killed in that field, preparation for Goliath. Every bear he fought alone, training for armies. The Psalms he wrote when no one was listening, those became the prayers of millions. But if God had made him king at 15, he would have been murdered by jealous brothers before he ever faced his giant. Paul. 3 years in Arabia after his conversion, not 3 months, 3 years in the wilderness. Why? Because God had to break the Pharisee out of him, had to strip away the religious pride, had to rebuild his entire theology from the ground up. And when he finally emerged, he didn't just preach to Jews, he turned the entire Roman Empire upside down. And Jesus. 30 years of nothing, no miracles, no crowds, no ministry, 30 years of carpentry in Nazareth. Why? Because even the Son of God had to wait for the appointed time. Even Jesus had to be hidden until the moment of revelation. Do you see the pattern? Isolation before impact, hiddenness before power, quarantine before contagion. It's not just a Bible story, it's a formula, and you're in it right now. You've been in isolation, you've been hidden, you've been in quarantine. And it wasn't random, it was strategic. Here's the biblical principle. Second book of the Bible, Exodus chapter 3, verse 1. Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the far side of the wilderness. That phrase, the far side of the wilderness, that's not geography, that's isolation. God led Moses to the place where no one could find him, where no one could influence him, where no one could interrupt what God was building. And that's where you've been, the far side of the wilderness, not lost, positioned, because God had to get you away from the voices that would have aborted your real purpose, away from the people who benefited from your counterfeit, away from the systems that needed you to stay small. And here's what I need you to understand about that feeling you've been carrying. You know that ache, that sense of something's missing. Medical professionals would call it existential dread. Therapists would call it depression. But what if it's neither? What if it's homesickness, not clinical depression? Spiritual displacement. Your soul knows it's living in the wrong country. Your spirit knows it's in exile. That ache isn't pathology, it's navigation. Your internal GPS saying, you're off course, this isn't home, this isn't where you belong. I'll give you a real example. There was a woman, I'll call her Sarah, early 40s, successful attorney, partner at her firm, making multiple 6 figures, everyone impressed, everyone proud. But every morning she woke up with this weight on her chest, thought it was anxiety, medicated for it, went to therapy for it, but nothing helped, because it wasn't anxiety. It was her real purpose trying to break out of quarantine. Her real calling wasn't law. It was teaching, not in a classroom, teaching nations through writing. But if she'd known that at 25, she would have quit law school, tried to start a ministry with no foundation, no resources, no credibility, and crashed. So God let her build the counterfeit. Let her develop discipline, communication skills, financial stability. 13 years in a career that wasn't hers. And when she finally got the green light to transition, it took her 6 months. 6 months to build what would have taken her 10 years to build without the preparation. That ache she felt, that was the quarantine timer ticking. So, if the quarantine was necessary, if the isolation was strategic, if the waiting was preparation, then the question becomes this: what makes this moment different? What changed? Why can't God hold it back anymore? Here's what changed. The decoy mission is complete. And I need to explain what that means, because this is where everything you've suffered starts to make sense. In military warfare, when you're protecting something extremely valuable, you don't just hide it. You create a deco. You send out fake coordinates. You position troops that look like your main force. And when the enemy attacks that decoy, you let them. You let them think they're winning. You let them pour their resources into destroying what was never the real target. Meanwhile, the actual mission proceeds in a completely different location, untouched, undetected, unstoppable. That's what's been happening in your life. You've been the decoy, not expendable, not worthless, but tactical. Everything you've poured yourself into, every year you've invested in that counterfeit purpose, every moment of suffering you endured while trying to make it work, that was you drawing enemy fire away from your real purpose. The enemy saw you in that job, that ministry, that relationship, that career, and thought, got them, neutralized, no threat. And while the enemy was celebrating your defeat in the decoy life, God was building something in secret that the enemy never even saw coming. Every attack you survived in that counterfeit purpose, that wasn't an attack on the real you. That was an attack on the decoy. Every failure, every betrayal, every closed door, every rejection, the enemy thought he was destroying your destiny, but he was shooting at a hologram. And you know what that means? Your real purpose has been completely protected this entire time, untouched, uncompromised, pure. Now, let me show you what you learned during the decoy mission, because nothing was wasted. In that counterfeit purpose, you learned patience. You learned how to wait when nothing makes sense. You learned resilience, how to get back up after getting knocked down over and over. You learned discernment, how to recognize the difference between what looks good and what is good. You learned authority, how to stand alone when everyone else thinks you're wrong. You learned how to manage resources, how to handle pressure, how to lead when no one's following, how to speak when no one's listening. These aren't generic skills, these are weapons, and you needed every single one of them for what's coming, because your real purpose isn't easier than the counterfeit. It's harder, it's bigger, it requires more. And if you had stepped into it without these weapons, you would have been destroyed on day one. So, God gave you a training ground. He let you build these skills in an environment where the stakes were lower, where the enemy was distracted, where you could fail and recover without losing everything. Think about it like this. You spent years getting really good at something that wasn't your calling. But every skill you developed, every lesson you learned, every capability you built, all of it transfers. The entrepreneur who's about to become a prophet learned business strategy first. The prophet who's about to shift nations learned how to manage a toxic workplace first. The teacher who's about to disciple millions learned patience with impossible people first. None of it was wasted. It was all preparation. So here's what most people conclude at this point. They say, okay, I get it. The suffering was necessary. The detours were preparation. It was all about the lessons I needed to learn. God was teaching me. And I'm grateful for the growth. And that sounds mature. That sounds spiritual. That sounds like breakthrough. But it's not the full picture. Because the decoy mission wasn't just about you learning lessons. If it was only about your growth, God could have taught you in a million easier ways. The decoy mission was about something much more strategic. It was about drawing fire. It was about making the enemy think he'd already won. It was about keeping you visible in the wrong place so your real purpose could develop in secret. Every year you spent faithful in that counterfeit purpose, the enemy relaxed a little more. Every year you stayed committed to something that wasn't yours, he thought. Good. They're neutralized. They'll never be a threat. They've accepted their cage. And while he was convinced you were harmless, God was downloading revelation, building character, positioning resources, aligning relationships, timing everything for the moment you'd step out of the decoy and into the real. You weren't just learning, you were bait. And that's not an insult, that's a promotion. In warfare, you only use valuable soldiers as bait. Expendable troops don't get that assignment. You were trusted to hold the decoy position because God knew you were strong enough to survive it. He knew you wouldn't quit. He knew you'd stay faithful even when it didn't make sense. And that faithfulness in the wrong place just qualified you for authority in the right place. Now here's what I need you to understand about what you're feeling right now, because I know what's happening in your body even as I'm saying this. You know that sensation, like you're about to break, like you can't do this one more day, like something inside you is cracking. That's not a breakdown coming. That's not depression. That's not burnout. Let me tell you what that actually is. That's your body rejecting the counterfeit, like a bad organ transplant. Your immune system has been tolerating this foreign purpose for years, but it's reached toxicity, the chest tightness you feel during meetings that should excite you. That's not anxiety. That's your spirit saying, this doesn't belong to us. The exhaustion that hits you after achieving goals that should energize you. That's not fatigue. That's your soul refusing to celebrate in enemy territory. The numbness when people praise you for work that looks successful. That's not ingratitude. That's your real self saying, this isn't our victory. This is someone else's trophy. Your body has been trying to tell you. Every panic attack, every sleepless night, every moment of unexplained sadness in the middle of success. Those weren't disorders. Those were alarms. Your internal system screaming, wrong life, wrong purpose, wrong mission, get out, get out, get out. And here's the mental exercise I want you to do right now. In your mind, not physically, but in your awareness, I want you to put your hand over your heart. Don't actually move. Just imagine your hand there, feel that beat. Every single heartbeat you've ever had, from the day you were born until this exact second, has been a countdown. Not counting down to death, counting down to deployment. Your heart has been in training mode this entire time, and every beat has been one beat closer to the moment you step into what you were actually created for. But I need to validate something uncomfortable, because if I don't say this, you'll think I don't understand. Part of you doesn't want to leave the counterfeit. Part of you likes it there. And that doesn't make you weak. That makes you human. The counterfeit is familiar. It's predictable. It has approval. It pays bills. It makes sense to other people. And your real purpose? It's terrifying. It's unknown. It's risky. It might cost you relationships. It might cost you reputation. It might cost you the version of yourself that everyone's comfortable with. So, you've had thoughts. Don't lie to yourself. You've had these thoughts. What if I'm delusional? What if this whole chosen one thing is just my ego? What if my real purpose is actually worse than what I have now? What if I step out and fail and prove everyone right who said I should have just stayed where I was? What if I'm not special at all and this is all just spiritual fantasy? Those thoughts aren't spiritual attacks. Those are honest questions, And the fact that you're asking them means you're close, because comfort doesn't ask questions. Comfort just stays. But here's what I need you to understand about that fear. You're not afraid of failure. You're afraid of size. The real purpose is too big. It requires a version of you that you're not sure exists yet. And that fear, that's not a red flag. That's a green light. Because you didn't fear the counterfeit. The counterfeit was manageable, controllable, safe. The fact that your real purpose scares you means you can sense its magnitude, and that magnitude is real. Let me show you something biblical that's going to reframe everything. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9. Paul is talking about his weakness, and God tells him, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Now, everyone quotes that verse about God helping you when you're struggling, but let me show you what that word weakness actually means in Greek. The word is asthenia, and yes, it means without strength. But in a military context, in the language Paul was writing in, that word means strategic vulnerability. It means ba'at. Paul's weakness wasn't a failure, it was a tactic. When he looked weak, when he looked defeated, when he looked like he was barely surviving, the enemy saw an easy target and attacked. And every time the enemy attacked what looked like weakness, he exposed his own position. He revealed his strategy. He wasted resources on something that wasn't the actual threat. Meanwhile, Paul's real power was hidden behind the weakness, waiting for the exact moment to be revealed. That's what your breaking point is. It's not you falling apart. It's the enemy's last major attack on the decoy. He's seeing cracks, and he's pouring everything he has into finishing you off in that counterfeit purpose. But what he doesn't know is that the cracks aren't in you. The cracks are in the cage. And the moment that cage fully breaks, what comes out is what he's been afraid of this entire time. I'll give you one more witness. There's a man, let's call him Marcus, late 30s, 15 years in corporate finance, climbing, grinding, made VP at 35, corner office. Everyone jealous. But something was dying inside, started having these vivid dreams about standing in front of crowds, speaking, teaching. But not about money, about purpose, about destiny. And every morning he'd wake up and think, "That's ridiculous. I'm a numbers guy. I'm not a speaker. That's just burnout talking." But the dreams got more intense, the pull got stronger, and finally, at 38, he had a full breakdown. Ended up in his doctor's office, thinking he was having a heart attack. Doctor ran every test. Nothing. Heart was fine. Doctor said, "This is anxiety. Here's medication." But Marcus knew it wasn't anxiety. It was his real purpose trying to break out of quarantine. He gave himself 6 months, stayed in finance but started speaking on weekends. Small groups, awkward at first, but something clicked. Within 2 years, he'd built a platform of 200,000 people, left corporate. Now he's financially free and impacting more lives in 1 month than he did in 15 years of finance. And here's what he said about those 15 years. "I thought I wasted them. But every financial principle I teach now, I learned in that corporate cage. Every leadership truth I share, I learned from toxic bosses. The enemy thought he had me trapped, but God was just letting me get my PhD in the prison." So if the decoy mission is ending, if the cage is breaking, if the quarantine is lifting, then what's the trigger? What makes this the moment? Why can God not hold it back any more specifically? The trigger is this: a timer, not a metaphorical timer, an actual timer. See, when God puts something in quarantine, it's not random, it's not emotional, it's scientific. Medical quarantine has a specific duration based on incubation period. COVID was 14 days because that's how long the virus needed to either activate or die. Spiritual quarantine works the same way. God set a timer over your real purpose based on how long it would take for you to become strong enough to carry it without it destroying you. That timer started the day the counterfeit was implanted, the day you accepted someone else's blueprint as your own, and it's been counting down ever since. Every year of faithfulness in the wrong place added 1 year of readiness for the right place. Every painful season built another layer of foundation. Every test you passed moved you 1 step closer to clearance. And 72 hours ago, that timer hit 0. Now here's what most people think when they hear that God can't hold something back anymore. They think it's about HIS, patience. They think God has been watching you struggle, watching you drift, watching you compromise, and finally, he's had enough. Finally, he's done being patient with your disobedience. Finally, his frustration reached a breaking point and he said, "That's it. I'm stepping in. You've tested me long enough." And that interpretation sounds spiritual. It sounds convicting. It makes you want to repent. Get right. Prove yourself worthy. It puts you on your knees asking for forgiveness, for wasting time, for not seeking him harder, for not being ready sooner. And listen, there's nothing wrong with repentance, but that's not what anymore means in this context. Because here's the thing about timers. They don't measure emotion. They measure biology. A doctor doesn't end quarantine because they're frustrated with the patient. They end quarantine because the incubation period is complete. The patient is no longer contagious because the virus either fully activated or fully died. It's not about the doctor's patience, it's about the patient's readiness. So when God says he can't hold this back anymore, he's not saying his patience with you expired. He's saying your quarantine expired. The incubation period is complete. The preparation phase is finished. Not because he's tired of waiting, because you're ready. And keeping you in quarantine 1 more day would actually be cruel at this point, because you've outgrown it. The cocoon is too small. The womb is too tight. You're fully developed, and staying inside any longer isn't protection anymore. It's suffocation. That word, anymore. Let me break that down for you. Anymore. Not 1 more day. Not 1 more season. Not 1 more year. He cannot hold it 1 more moment because the timer is done. And when a medical timer hits 0, the doctor doesn't have a choice. The patient is cleared. The quarantine lifts. Not because someone decided it's time, because it is time. The appointed time, the exact time. This is the pivot point. This is the moment when everything I've been telling you stops being history and becomes right now. Because if the quarantine just lifted, if the timer just hit 0, if the readiness just certified, then what you're feeling isn't the end of something, it's the beginning. Let me show you what this looks like practically. There's a morning coming. Might be tomorrow, might be this week, might be next month, but it's coming. And on that morning, you're going to wake up and try to put on your old life, your old purpose, your old identity, the one you've been wearing for years, and it's not going to fit anymore. Not because it changed, because you did. You're going to reach for that familiar routine, that comfortable cage, that predictable script, and your hands are going to go through it like it's not even there. Like trying to wear clothes from when you were 5 years old. They're not BAD clothes. They're just not your size anymore. You'll walk into situations that used to make sense, and they'll feel foreign. You'll hear advice that used to sound wise, and it'll sound hollow. You'll try to care about things that used to matter, and you'll feel nothing. and you're going to panic for a second because you'll think, I'm losing myself, but you're not losing yourself. You're finding yourself. The old life isn't fitting because you've outgrown it. Now in your mind, not physically but in your awareness, I want you to do something. I want you to imagine yourself standing. Not actually stand up, but in your spirit, see yourself rise. Because what I'm about to tell you, you need to receive it standing. Slaves receive orders sitting. Servants receive instructions kneeling. But warriors receive commissions standing. And this is your commissioning moment. Here's the shift that's happening. Everything until now has been rehearsal. You've been on stage, yes. Performing, yes. But it was the wrong play. You learned every line perfectly. You hit every mark exactly. You got applause, you got results. But deep down you knew, this isn't my real role. This is practice. And the director has been watching from the back of the theater the entire time, waiting for the moment you were ready to step into the real performance. And just now, the stage manager walked up behind you and whispered, that was rehearsal, beautiful work, you're ready now, here's your real script, different play, different character, different audience. Because the people who were watching you in the rehearsal, they weren't your real audience, they were just the other actors. Your real audience has been in heaven this whole time. Hebrews 12, verse 1. You are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. They didn't come to watch you rehearse someone else's script. They came to watch your performance, the one you were cast for before the foundation of the world. And here's the critical part. In the rehearsal, you were performing for human approval. Did they like it? Did they clap? Did they validate? But in the real performance, you're performing for a different audience. An audience that doesn't clap for good acting. They're waiting for authenticity. They're waiting to see the real you, the one you've been hiding under someone else's costume. And when that version finally walks on stage, when the real you finally shows up, that's when heaven erupts. Now let me give you the diagnostic tools to tell the difference between counterfeit purpose and real purpose, because you're going to need to recognize real when it shows up. Here's the first way to tell. The feet factor. Counterfeit purpose requires constant age adjustment. It's like shoes that are almost your size but not quite. You can walk in them. You can function. But you're always aware of them. You're always adjusting, compensating, breaking them in. Real purpose fits like skin. You're not aware of it because there's no friction. Now listen carefully. I'm not saying it's easy. Real purpose can be exhausting, but it's not draining. Counterfeit purpose drains you. Real purpose fills you, even when it's exhausting. Second diagnostic. The energy direction. Counterfeit purpose is external. The energy flows out of you toward other people's validation. You do the thing, you need their response, their approval becomes your fuel. Real purpose is internal. The energy flows from you. You do the thing, and you're filled before anyone responds. The work itself satisfies you. Human approval becomes a bonus, not the source. Third, diagnostic. The fear type. Both purposes create fear, but different kinds. Counterfeit purpose creates fear of failure. You're scared you'll look bad, you'll mess up, people will see you're a fraud. It's ego fear. Real purpose creates fear of responsibility. You're scared, it's too big. Scared you're not enough for it. It's size fear. If your fear is about looking bad, you're in counterfeit. If your fear is about the weight of what you're carrying, you're close to real. Fourth diagnostic. The opposition pattern. Counterfeit purpose gets support from the wrong people. The people who benefit from you staying small will cheer for counterfeit. Your real purpose will make those same people uncomfortable, not because it's wrong, because it threatens the status quo they're invested in. So, pay attention. Who celebrates when you talk about this calling, and who gets quiet? The quiet ones are telling you something. Fifth, diagnostic. The timeline feel. Counterfeit purpose feels late. You think, I should have started this years ago, I'm behind, I'm catching up, regret-based. Real purpose feels precise. When it arrives, even if you're 40 or 50 or 60, you think, I couldn't have done this until now. Every year was necessary. Timing-based, not regret-based. Let me show you this biblically. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven. Everyone quotes that verse about patience, about waiting, about God's timing. But let me show you what that word time actually means. The Hebrew word is eth, and eth doesn't mean eventually. It doesn't mean someday. Eth means appointed time, specific, marked on the calendar, non-negotiable, like a court date, like a wedding, like a birth. Verse 11 of that same chapter says, He makes everything beautiful in its time. That word again, eth. God doesn't do eventually, He doesn't do someday. He does exactly. And your eth, your appointed time, your marked moment on heaven's calendar is now. Not because you finally got spiritual enough, because the timer expired. The eth arrived. You weren't late, you weren't delayed, you weren't behind. You were exactly on schedule for an appointed time that was set before you were born. And that appointed time is this moment. Not last year when you thought you were ready, not next year when you'll feel more prepared. This moment, right here, right now. The eth you've been waiting for without knowing you were waiting for it just arrived. So, if the quarantine lifted, if the timer expired, if the eth arrived, if the rehearsal ended, if the old life doesn't fit anymore, then the question becomes, how? How do I step out of the counterfeit? How do I activate the real? How do I make this transition? Because understanding is one thing, doing is another. Here's how. Everything until now was diagnosis. What comes next is deployment. No theory, only orders. In the next several minutes, I'm going to give you the exact protocol to decommission the counterfeit and activate the real. This is not symbolic. This is not metaphorical. This is operational. First, I need you to do something mentally, not physically. In your mind, I want you to find something, anything, your phone if you're holding it, the steering wheel if you're driving, the blanket if you're lying down. In your imagination, I want you to grip it. Feel that grip in your awareness, that strength in your mental hand. That's the same strength you're about to use to grip your destiny. Don't let go of that feeling. Hold it through what comes next. Here's the 72-hour decommissioning protocol. 3 phases, 24 hours each. This starts the moment you finish this video. Hour 1 through hour 24 is the acknowledgement phase. In your mind, not on paper, I want you to name the counterfeit purpose. Be specific. Say it internally. I have been living as blank. Fill in that blank. I have been living as the people pleaser. I have been living as the safe one. I have been living as the approved one. Name it clearly. Then, still in your mind, I want you to say this. Thank you for protecting me when I was weak. But your mission is complete. I release you with honor. You don't shame it. You don't curse it. You honor it. Because it kept you alive. It taught you skills. But its deployment is over. Hour 25 through hour 48 is the detox phase. Mentally identify 3 activities that feed the counterfeit. If your counterfeit is people-pleasing, one activity might be apologizing when you're not wrong. If your counterfeit is achievement addiction, one activity might be checking metrics every hour. In your mind, make the decision. For 48 hours, I fast from these 3 things. You're creating space for the new by removing the old. Hour 49 through hour 72 is the activation phase. On the morning of day 3, before you look at your phone, before you check messages, I want you to speak something out loud. Not in your mind this time. Out loud. Say, I decommission the counterfeit purpose of blank. I activate what God has been hiding. You might not have full clarity on what the real purpose is yet. That's fine. Clarity comes after obedience, not before. You're activating the process. Now, here are the critical instructions. Do not post about this on social media. The enemy monitors announcements. Do not ask permission from people who are invested in your old identity. They'll talk you out of it. Do not wait for perfect clarity before you start. You'll never feel fully ready. Do tell one person who will hold you accountable, someone who's already free, someone who won't coddle you. Because here's what's going to happen. In the next 3 to 7 days, the counterfeit is going to fight back. It's not going to just let you walk away. And it's going to use very specific tactics. I'm going to name 7 forms of resistance so you can recognize them the moment they appear. The first form is the nostalgia attack. It looks like this. Suddenly, you're flooded with memories of the good old days in your counterfeit purpose. Remember when everyone was proud of you. Remember when it was working. Remember when you felt successful. The memories are suspiciously selective. All good, no pain. Why this attack? Because the counterfeit is trying to make you doubt by romanticizing the past. How to recognize it? The memories come in waves, usually at night. How to win? In your mind, recall one painful moment from that counterfeit life, just one. That memory is the antidote. The second form is the identity crisis. It looks like this. You wake up panicking. Who am I without this purpose? What do I even like? What am I even good at? Existential terror. Why this attack? Because the counterfeit was integrated into your sense of self. Removing it feels like removing a limb. How to recognize it? The fear feels existential, not practical. How to win? Repeat this. I am not what I do. I am who God made. Say it until the panic subsides. The third form is the authority voice. It looks like this. Respected people in your life suddenly show up with advice. Be careful. Don't be rash. Think about your family. What if you're wrong? They sound wise. They sound concerned. Why this attack? The counterfeit is using borrowed authority to override your obedience. How to recognize it? Their advice makes them comfortable, not you free. How to win? Honor them, but disobey them. Say, I hear you. I love you. I'm still moving forward. The fourth form is the provision threat. It looks like this. Sudden financial fear. How will you survive? What if you can't pay bills? What if you lose everything? Panic about security. Why this attack? Trying to use survival instinct as a chain. How to recognize it? The fear focuses on survival, not on calling. How to win? In your mind, recall one time God provided when it seemed impossible. Anchor there. The fifth form is the responsibility guilt. It looks like this. But what about the people who depend on you? What about your kids, your spouse, your team? You're being selfish. Why this attack? Using love as manipulation. How to recognize it? Guilt feels holy but creates paralysis. How to win? Ask yourself, am I truly their source, or is God? Truth will set you free. The sixth form is the timing doubt. It looks like this. Maybe I heard wrong. Maybe not yet. Maybe I should wait until blank happens. Maybe later. Why this attack? Delay tactic. If not now, when? How to recognize it? The word maybe becomes an excuse for inaction. How to win? Set a 7-day deadline. If not now, when specifically? Force precision. The seventh form is the comfort seduction. It looks like this. Your old purpose suddenly seems not that bad. Actually, it's improving. Look, they're offering you a promotion, more money, better conditions. Why this attack? Negotiating to keep you in the cage. How to recognize it? Feels like relief, but smells like compromise. How to win? Remember this, a comfortable cage is still a cage. Let me give you one witness. A man, I'll call him David, mid-40s, faced all 7 forms within 10 days of his decision. The nostalgia hit on day 2, the identity crisis on day 4. His pastor called on day 6 with the authority voice, financial fear on day 7. His wife used responsibility guilt on day 8. He almost caved. But on day 9, he set the 7-day deadline for timing doubt. And on day 10, his old company offered him a raise to stay. Comfort seduction. He recognized every single form because he'd been warned. He stayed the course. Within 90 days, he was fully transitioned into his real calling. Now he's impacting thousands. But he had to walk through the fire first. Let me show you one more biblical piece. Joshua chapter 1, verse 9. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Now, everyone reads that as an encouragement. Be brave. Don't worry. But let me show you the Hebrew. The phrase, be strong, in Hebrew is chazak. And chazak doesn't mean try to be brave. It's a military term. It means seize with violence, take by force. It's an aggressive word. God isn't saying, try to find some courage. He's saying, take what's yours, like a hostile takeover. You're not being awarded your destiny. You're seizing it. You're not waiting for permission. You're taking what's been held in quarantine. This is not passive. This is not polite. This is warfare. And the weapon is your decision, your obedience, your movement. So here's what's true right now. You are cleared for contact. Quarantine complete. Decoy mission successful. Rehearsal over. Opening night is here. Your real purpose is operational. You are commissioned. The counterfeit has been exposed. The cage is visible. And what I'm about to do is seal everything I've told you so it doesn't leak out. So the enemy can't steal it. So you can't forget it when the pressure comes. This is not a closing prayer. This is an activation ceremony. And you're not listening to it. You're participating in it. So wherever you are, in your awareness, position yourself to receive. Not physically, but spiritually. You're about to be commissioned. Father, I stand in the authority of your word, not mine. I speak as a messenger, commissioned to activate what you've been holding in quarantine. Every chosen one, hearing this, the timer expired. The seal is broken. What you suppressed for their protection, you now release for your glory. Let it be so. I see you, the one who's been faithful in a purpose that wasn't yours, who smiled through the emptiness, who achieved and felt nothing, who succeeded and still felt like a failure, who kept going when everything in you screamed, stop. I see the nights you couldn't sleep because something was wrong, but you couldn't name it. I see the mornings you woke up dreading a life you were supposed to be grateful for. I see you, and I'm telling you, that wasn't weakness. That was your real self trying to break through. And now I seal what we've uncovered today. I seal the counterfeit purpose paradox, that the purpose you've been living was implanted, not God-given, and today it's decommissioned. I seal the divine quarantine truth, that God hid your real purpose to protect you, not punish you, and the incubation period is complete. I seal the decoy life reframe, that every failure was strategic success, every attack proof of importance, every painful year was warrior training. I seal the Anymore mechanism, that this isn't God's patience expiring, but your readiness being certified. I seal the 72-hour protocol, acknowledgement, detox, activation. I bind the 7 forms of resistance: nostalgia, identity crisis, authority voice, provision threat, responsibility guilt, timing doubt, comfort seduction. They have no power beyond this moment. I bind them in the name of Jesus. They will appear, but they will not succeed. This chosen one has been warned. This chosen one is armed. And I declare over every chosen one hearing this, within 7 days, your old purpose will not fit anymore. You'll try to put it on like old clothes, and it won't go on. Within 14 days, you'll have a clear signpost of real purpose. Not the full map, but a direction that makes your spirit say, yes. Within 30 days, someone will try to pull you back into counterfeit. You'll recognize the authority voice immediately, and you'll disobey with respect. Within 90 days, you'll look back and wonder how you ever lived in that cage. This isn't hope. This is prophecy. Write this down mentally. Hold me to it. Check back in 7 days, 14 days, 30 days, 90 days. Every word I've spoken will come to pass, not because I'm powerful, because the timer expired. Your appointed time arrived. Now, I ask you directly, are you ready to decommission the counterfeit? Are you ready to activate what God has been hiding? Are you ready to step onto the real stage? If yes, say it out loud right now. Just one word, yes. I heard that. More importantly, heaven heard that. You just filed your notice. The decoy mission is over. You're dismissed. Not to go back to life as usual. You're dismissed to deploy. Quarantine lifted. Opening night in progress. Real mission. Operational. Go.